I'm Tucson Weekly senior writer Jim Ninsel, your host for Zona Politics. Every week, we bring you a conversation about what's going on in Arizona's political world. This week, members of Congress are scrambling to avoid a shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. Joining me in the studio to talk about the latest immigration politics, the week at the Arizona legislature, and much more, Leah Marquez Peterson, President and CEO of the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and Cheryl Cage, the chairwoman of the Pima County Democratic Party. Thanks to both of you for joining me here on Zona Politics. Let's start with a standoff over the Homeland Security Department. We're taping this a few days before the deadline to secure the funding, but at this point the Senate has moved towards passing a clean bill with none of these amendments attached to it involving the president's immigration executive actions. The House of Representatives is saying they don't know if they'll support that or not. Leah, where do you think this thing's going?
You know, I was very happy to see the separation. I think this was just so becoming so complex politically. I understand, you know, certainly the Republicans' concern about the executive order and the direction that went, and that's certainly not the ideal way we think to handle immigration. This needs to be handled by Congress, and we need specifically our Arizona congressmen to step up on different components of immigration. But when they were putting the two pieces together and fighting that out in D.C., can you imagine if our Homeland Security budget was stopped and there were furloughs and different issues? That's not something the United States should take on, and that's certainly not the direction that we should be going. So supportive of the separation of the two issues.
Cheryl, your thoughts on how this is unfolding?
Well, I support the separation also. It's interesting, the Senate passed a comprehensive immigration plan in 2013, but the House didn't act on it. The president has chosen to act on something that needs to be acted upon, which is immigration. So I think that his approach has been correct, and I'm very, very happy that the two issues are completely split now.
And Leah, you have been working on lobbying members of Congress quite a bit about immigration reform, trying to get something voted on in the wake of the Senate passing that. And you haven't had a lot of luck convincing the House of Representatives or members of the House of Representatives to go along with this. You have a situation where some of our Arizona congressmen, Matt Salmon and Paul Gosar, don't want to see these issues separated, but you think they're taking the wrong approach to that?
I think that these need to be separated. I want to see Congress act, as many in the United States do, want to see them act on immigration reform. I understand the complexity putting this comprehensive package together. We were also very supportive of the Senate bill, but obviously that's got no traction in the House. I think that it's going to be broken down, as many say, into different components. We need someone to take on the E-Verify portion, someone to talk about guest worker programs and various components of immigration reform. I think that there is energy within the different congressmen in our state, congresspeople, to take on those various issues. Just this last week, we hosted a roundtable with Congressman Gosar in Nogales. As you may know, we launched our Ambos Nogales Hispanic Chamber. Very excited to talk to him about immigration reform and guest worker programs, which he's had some background in. And, I'm encouraged by that. So we'll continue to do our advocacy work with various members of Congress.
Do you think the president's executive actions have made it more difficult to get a comprehensive bill passed?
I think it certainly raised the heat in terms of all the political ramifications of it. And I worry about the sustainability. As we come up on the next presidential election, what will happen? You've got so many years of, Dreamer students having access and the expansion of the base that can apply for these various visas. But the sustainability of this and the politics that unfolded with an executive order, I think, is something that's very challenging. We still need immigration reform, and we need Congress to act. Because
the next administration could reverse the actions of this administration. And Cheryl, a federal judge in Texas has ruled that the president's executive actions exceeded his authority, and has put a block to this whole procedure.
Well, and I think that it's interesting to note that this judge is in Texas, and he's been focused on kind of anti-Obama rhetoric. The whole issue is it's too political. It needs to be split, and I do think that executive orders do have a place in our process. They've been used in the past for, integrating the armed forces and civil rights, and I think that this might be a time when we just need to act.
Now, as long as we're talking about immigration, the Tucson Police Department has changed its policy regarding how it does immigration checks on people that it comes in contact with that it suspects may be related or maybe in the country illegally, and this is something that's related to SB 1070, which required these immigration checks. But the city's attorney's office has now analyzed the president's executive actions and said that they can make some changes in the city's policy. Leah, you think the city's getting it right here?
You know, we hosted an event with Chief Villaseñor, probably a couple of years ago at this point, talking about the enforcement of SB 1070, and it's been highly controversial in our community. I'm glad to see there's clarification. I think one of the worst pieces about this has been that different jurisdictions have interpreted this law in different ways. So it was handled in different ways throughout different cities and counties and so on. We needed clarification, so I think this is a good move by our city council.
Cheryl, you think the city's moving in the right direction here?
I absolutely do. I found the fact that a police officer could ask a victim or a witness to a crime about their immigration status to be abhorrent. And I really applaud our city council for pushing forward in this and clarifying it.
And Leah, in terms of SB 1070, did it have a negative effect on the state's business climate?
Absolutely. I mean, this was something that I think as we were living through, we weren't sure exactly what would happen, but I think in hindsight, you can see that it did have economic impact on our state. And it's one of the things that as a Chamber of Commerce, as a Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, we're particularly focused on legislative bills now that could have an increasing negative impact either with our relations or trade with Mexico or in impacting our Hispanic business community. So I think SB 1070 was not a good thing for the state.
And have we recovered from that? Is the image problem still there, or what's going on today?
I'd say it's gotten much better. Here we are years later. As you know, our chamber works a lot in Sonora, the state closest to us in Mexico. And as we visit Hermosillo, Guaymas, different communities, we certainly have that I guess the history, and everybody's aware of SB 1070 and the challenges or controversy the state of Arizona went through. But I think that from a business perspective, there's understanding that we're economically interdependent on one another, the state of Arizona, the state of Sonora. So we are getting beyond that, I think, now. And it's been good. We still hear a lot about the state of Texas and the work they're doing, but I think some of those winds are shifting also, and we're in a better place.
You want to comment on SB 1070 at all?
Well,
Cheryl?
with all due respect, I think that the business community and civil rights communities knew exactly what was going to happen with 1070, that it was going to be a disaster, and it was a disaster. And I think that, I'm hopeful that we're recovering with some of this, but I think some of the legislation that's continuing to come out of the state legislature is just enforcing this view of Arizona as maybe not the most welcoming place.
And I want to talk about the legislature in just a minute, but first we're going to pause to take a commercial break, and we will be right back.
Zona Politics is a proud media partner of the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, which serves the business community in the bilingual, bicultural region of the Arizona-Sonora border. For more information, visit TucsonHispanicChamber.org or call 620-0005. Zona Politics is made possible by the support of Maynard's Market and Kitchen, located in downtown's historic train depot at 400 North Toole Avenue. Come experience Chef Jared Scott's French-inspired fall menu featuring wild salmon, a rich bouillabaisse, winter ale pot pie, and much more. Or stop into the market for a coffee, a dinner to go, or a scoop of Isabella's ice cream. Maynard's is open for dinners Sunday through Thursday, 5 to 9 p.m., and Friday and Saturday from 5 to 10 p.m. Brunch is served Sundays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., and happy hour is available from 4 to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
We're back with Zona Politics. My guest today, Leah Marquez Peterson from the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and Cheryl Cage, the chairwoman of the Pima County Democratic Party. Thanks again for joining me here. I want to talk about the legislature. A lot of bills on the move up there right now, but education is one of the foremost issues being discussed. And there's a bill that would eliminate the ability of the districts to have a desegregation special revenue flow there. And it's a complicated legal arrangement, but it would essentially cost TUSD $60-some million a year. And Leah, you've been involved with Tucson Unified School District. Your thoughts on this legislation?
No, certainly. We heard this legislation was kind of out there as a concept several months ago. And at the time, led by ATRA, Arizona Tax Research Association, and their concern about the financial burden from a property tax perspective on businesses, and a lot of the talk around the Phoenix area and some of the concerns they had with districts. At the time we raised the issue that this could have a bigger impact in the Tucson region, and please study the impact throughout the state. And I'm afraid that didn't happen. As Senator Lesko launched the desegregation bill, as we talk about, we wrote her a letter and asked for her to please consider modification of this. The impact on TUSD, who is still under court order, so they still have that financial strain, and not having the funding mechanism for it, that just not going to work. That, it could bankrupt our school district or just create a horrible situation for our students and the families down here. So we'll continue to work on that. I know that there was quite an uproar at the TUSD school board meeting recently, and that's interesting. I think we need to work with Senator Lesko to modify the bill.
And Cheryl, there was an uproar at the TUSD meeting this week. Michael Hicks on the TUSD board has supported this legislation, and that brought Senator Steve Farley and some other state lawmakers down, and Steve Farley actually demanded Michael Hicks's resignation from the TUSD board.
Well, I think that, this is one battle in the bigger war on public education. We have big problems within public education with charters, STOs, empowerment scholarships, and I think this is just one kerfuffle up here. I do think that Mr. Hicks should not have pushed the legislature to pass this bill, because it does take $64 million out of TUSD, which we can ill afford. But I think that whether Senator Farley was correct in doing that, I think he was correct in bringing it up and starting the conversation about the responsibility of school boards.
And Leah, there's also, I wanted to talk about Common Core standards, because it's such a political lightning rod right now. What do you think of these Common Core standards? Let's just start there.
Sure. I mean, our chamber has been supportive of Common Core standards for the several years we've been talking about it, as you've seen many of the other business organizations, the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and others. So we are in a kind of defense mode along these various bills in the Senate and in the House, different bills that are being, led to either challenge the implementation of Common Core or eliminate Common Core. And if you wonder why is the business community behind this, it's because as businesses grow, various states, we need that common platform or that fundamentals of education that the students are receiving regardless of the state that they're being educated in. So I think it makes a lot of sense. It's too bad to see that this is still just blown up so politically.
So you think it's getting a bad rap in the political world?
I think it does, and I think as a parent out there listening to a lot of the conversation happening, I would Google and research and have conversations about what exactly is Common Core, because I think there are a lot of misperceptions going on also.
Cheryl, the Senate did kill a bill this week that would have eliminated the Common Core standards, but there's another House bill that still might block their implementation. What's your take on this political battle over Common Core?
I think it will stand, and the bills will pass, and it will continue to be the law of the land, if you will. You have the very conservative kind of Tea Party Republicans who see Common Core as, this taking away of our freedoms, an overreach by the federal government. You also have some interesting approaches to the testing on both sides of it, but I think in general people know that this is what we have to deal with right now, and it's going to continue.
And you don't share the concerns that this is federal overreach or
no.
Too much teaching to the test or
no,
anything like
that? I don't think it's federal overreach.
Okay.
I would have a conversation about the high stakes testing, but I don't think that it's federal overreach, no.
And it seems like this Common Core battle is also part of the reason we had this recent dust-up between Governor Doug Ducey and State Superintendent of Public Instruction Diane Douglas recently. For now, Douglas seems to have blinked and is backing down from this fight, but at one point she said Ducey was secretly supportive of Common Core and he was pushing for charter schools over traditional schools. Leah, you know Doug Ducey very well. Is that a bad rap on him from Diane Douglas?
I think it was just discouraging, as just a constituent in the state to see this kind of battle occur with Diane Douglas. I was concerned about the tone of her messaging and kind of the combative direction she went with our new governor. I found that very shocking, to be honest. No, I think I don't think Governor Ducey certainly just focused on charter schools or any of the other different ideas she came up with. I think this will be interesting to see how it plays out. It seemed to me that she was concerned about the executive director and the assistant in terms of their reporting structure, and she was fighting against that and decided to fire them in essence, and didn't have the legal ability to do that. So I think internally that department really needs to get things cleaned up and just not fight the political battles like this out in the media.
And Cheryl, your thoughts of how this whole dust-up went?
I'm not a fan of Diane Douglas, but I will say that I think she spoke the truth about the charter school approaches. And again, this goes back to my comments about this is a bigger issue. This is about protecting public education or destroying public education. And it's too bad, but I'm not surprised that this is all happening.
And Leah, what's your take on the proposed education cuts in the budget that Doug Ducey has proposed? He's saying he wants to cut away from administration in the schools, and in that matters, try to move more money into the classrooms.
I think our state budget is very complex and a challenging point. He came into office with over $1 billion in deficit, and we knew, I think all of us knew, something's going to have to shift and change. So you have seen the cuts in his proposal to education. I know there's a lot of debate and negotiation going on right now in the state legislatures. They determined where that goes. I think it's unfortunate, but I do think what he's attempting to do, it seems like, is redirect funds within the school districts from administration to the classroom, and I applaud that. I think that there's a lot of efficiencies and different changes that can happen within the various school districts. What I'd like to see is where this goes from there. You know, what kind of internal work can the school districts be doing, whether it's a school board or the administrators, working to create more efficiencies and move those dollars internally.
Are you concerned about the cuts proposed for higher ed?
I am. I mean, I did have some meetings recently with our Chancellor Lambert at Pima Community College and the University of Arizona, and I think they knew kind of that writing was on the wall even during the election season, because there are few pieces within the general fund that can actually be modified, and so they did expect to see some budget cuts. At this point, we've recently written a letter to President Biggs and Speaker Gowan expressing our concern that the budget cuts in the state legislative proposals don't go beyond what the governor has already proposed. You hear a lot of talk out there where it could go, and you know, at this point, nobody likes any cuts in any of their areas, but I think what has been proposed at the U of A and Pima here in our neck of the woods is something that we could work with, and just don't want to see it go beyond that.
Cheryl, your thoughts on these cuts?
Well, my thoughts are that this is a direct attack on our public education system that's been going on for as long as I've lived here in Arizona. I think that we are devastating our economic ability to develop because of our poor public education. You know, we're paying $3,000 less than the national average per pupil. And I also think you were talking about parents going in and really researching this. I think people need to go in and really look to see what non-classroom spending is. It sounds like that's a good thing, let's put more money into the classroom, but what you're talking about are things like counselors, you know, repairs to the schools, the janitors, the principals, the people that are absolutely needed to help run that school. So I think it's really disinformation, and I think that people have to start standing up and kind of know what they're talking about.
All right, and we're going to have to leave it there as we take another break, but we will be right back after these messages.
Support comes from the Arizona Inn, a four-diamond family-owned historic resort hotel and restaurant on Elm Street near the U of A. Information is at arizonainn.com. Zona Politics is made possible by the generous support of Hotel Congress, the epicenter of downtown dining, music, and culture. Experience the hotel that the Washington Post called the crown jewel of Congress Street. More information available at hotelcongress.com.
And we're back with Zona Politics. My guests today, Leah Marquez Peterson from the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and Cheryl Cage, from the Pima County Democratic Party. And I wanted to talk a little bit about transportation. The state is putting off 2 expansion projects on I-10 for at least 5 years because of a lack of funding. We've got less federal money coming to the state. They have a problem with the Federal Highway Trust Fund potentially going bankrupt. The gas tax here locally is buying less for the repairs, and we need more repairs than ever. And Leah, well, let's start with the I-10 delay. Is that a business issue, the fact that we're not going to get that widened 3 lanes between here and Phoenix?
Yeah, I mean, certainly that's a business issue. And I'll tell you, regardless of the room I'm in with the business community, overwhelmingly the top topic is transportation, whether it's a city, the county, the state, the federal level. I mean, we have a challenge here. Anyone driving down Grant, Speedway, Broadway, you name it, potholes, road maintenance. You've seen the business community gather and speak recently at a Pima County Board of Supervisor meeting overwhelmingly about the need for road maintenance and repair. So this conversation is kind of beyond even I-10 to all of our interior roads also. And I think there are a number of different angles we need to consider.
And Cheryl, is it time to raise the gas tax to pay for more transportation funding?
Well, the gas tax hasn't been raised, I think, since 1993. It's 18 cents. So I absolutely think that it's time for us to look at that. The roads are an economic development issue, because when you have people coming to visit here to decide if they want to live here, if they want to bring their business here, and they drive down Grant, it's not a great thing. So we need to look at the long term, which is, how much better can we appear to the business community if we do fix these things versus, oh no, we don't want to raise the gas taxes because that's some kind of a burden. So I absolutely think that the gas tax should be raised.
Your thoughts on the gas tax as the funding mechanism, or is there a better funding mechanism out there?
Well, it's interesting. There are a number of different funding mechanisms people are talking about, whether it's increasing vehicle license taxes, sales tax on gasoline, which we don't charge in the state of Arizona, but they do in California, increasing the gasoline tax, and a number of different things. I think it's going to take a combination of that. But yeah, I don't think you'd see a lot of pushback from the business community in general for increasing some of those various fees and taxes, kind of a user fee, as you're out on the road more, using more gasoline, you're paying more of that. The bigger picture, I guess, is what's the sustainability of that as more people move to electric vehicles and using transit and so on. But that's I think a very thorough analysis we need to do, not only locally but nationally, as to what our answers are regarding transportation.
With gas prices as low as they are now, you could add 10 cents and people probably wouldn't even notice that their gas taxes had been increased at this
Perhaps,
point.
but I know gasoline prices are cyclical too, so you never know when that might come back.
It could be up to $4 a gallon a year from now. You never know. Steve Kosachik, the city councilman, had a proposal to move some RTA funding into road repair. What did you think of that, Leah?
I appreciate his intent behind that, but I worry about something that's been voted on by our citizens, shifting funds or moving funds like that. I participated on the Citizens Committee for the RTA years ago when the half-cent sales tax was approved, and so at first glance would probably not be supportive of moving funds from something that's been voted on by our community into something that it certainly is a kind of a crisis mode right now around road maintenance, but we need to look at other solutions.
What do you think of the Steve K's idea?
I think I also applaud him. He's a creative thinker, and I think that this is something that we should really discuss.
You think there's any hope we'll see a train between Tucson and Phoenix in our lifetime, Leah? And is it a good idea?
Wow, I don't know. I grew up here in Tucson, and we've been talking about this a long time. So maybe someday. I think it would certainly be utilized. If it were put in place, but the amount of money needed for something like that, I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime.
Cheryl?
In my lifetime, well, your lifetime versus my lifetime, it might be a little different, but I agree with what Leah is saying. I would love to see it happen next year.
Cheryl, last week the state Senate approved a bill blocking people from paying health insurance on the federal marketplace, online marketplace, if it included abortion coverage. Is this a good policy or bad policy?
It's a terrible policy. It's a horrible policy. It's another attack on women's health issues. It's an overreach of the state legislature, and it's just a continuing war on women.
Leah, you certainly have delved into a lot of insurance issues over the years with your companies, and your thoughts on this policy they're establishing here.
I think now that we've got a national platform for healthcare, we should embrace that and move forward. I think cutting it up by state on certain rules in certain states and doesn't apply in other states is not an efficient way to roll this out. We're focused on how to get the Latino community to sign up for the marketplace, how to get small businesses aware of it. And I think as a chamber, we're going to continue to focus on that and not support bills that pull particular pieces out of it and make it complicated and more complex for people. It's already hard enough to understand as it is, much more so if you're taking out particular pieces.
And how is the online marketplace going from the perspective of folks you work with?
Well, it's better. I mean, there was certainly a lot of feedback from both the business community and the Latino community about just how challenging it was to get signed up. We had navigators assisting. It just was very complicated and I'd say messy. And the federal government realized that and understood. I was able to participate in some conference calls giving feedback. This next rollout that's happened recently was much smoother. We heard of a lot of people who were getting online and doing things in English and Spanish and much more public outreach, so I'd say it was better.
And a lot more folks signed up this time out. Cheryl, there's also a bill up at the legislature that would legalize sawed-off shotguns, silencers, nunchucks. Your thoughts on this proposal?
Well, you know, the serious logical part of me says this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Part of me is kind of hoping that Kelly Ward has some kind of ability with nunchucks, so perhaps she could, you know, go out and give us a demonstration on the lawn. I think it's dangerous. I think it's silly, and I think it's a waste of time.
Is the Hispanic Chamber weighing in on this legislation at all?
We haven't yet, so no, we haven't yet come out with a position.
Okay. Leah, what do you think of these dream pods in downtown Tucson? And how does it reflect on just the whole debate about homelessness in our community?
You know, if we start with the debate around economic development and growing business infrastructure and so on, this is a very negative thing. It's a bad image for the city of Tucson, for Pima County, and I know recently our city council and board of supervisors have pursued legal action against their ability to be on the sidewalks and so on. And we support that. We think something needs to be done. We have a number of social service agencies that I think the council and the board of supervisors are both working to help the folks that are there that are homeless and are using these dream pods. But this is an eyesore. As you see this great development we've had downtown, and we're drawing people down and there's all this activity, I think it's a shame to see this kind of housing development that's expanded around the park and the sidewalks downtown.
Your thoughts on the dream pods downtown, Cheryl?
Well, I think it's activism that is pointing to a terrible problem, and I hope that we as a community can not just look at this as an eyesore, but look at it as what can we do to help these people, to help our homeless. They're crying out for help, and we need, as a community, to not just look at the messy pods, but understand what's in back of that.
We've got about a minute left, Leah, and your vice president at the chamber, Juan Ciscomani, has just moved over to the governor's office, running his Southern Arizona office down here. Tell us a little bit about Juan.
Yeah, we're very proud of Juan. Juan has been our vice president and worked with us since 2011, so he's been my right-hand man. I will miss him very much as we've grown the chamber and done a lot of different activity. I think Juan will be a great addition to the governor's staff representing him here in Southern Arizona. Our chamber's grown throughout Cochise County, Santa Cruz County, as well as Pima County, so Juan's very familiar with leaders and businesses in all three of the counties in this particular area, so I think he'll do a great job.
All right, and we're going to have to leave it there. That is our show for today. If you missed any part of it, you can watch us online at zonapolitics.com, and be sure to look us up on Facebook and Twitter. I'd like to give special thanks to our sponsors, Hotel Congress and the Arizona Inn, as well as our media partners at the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I'm Jim Ninsel. Thanks for watching Zona Politics. We'll see you next time.
Support comes from Brink Media, Arizona's most politically aware creative agency. Buy our vote at brink.com. Support for this program generously provided by Charles A. Levy.